about 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
Hello, teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm
While more speculation has been raised on the reasons for NATO's intervention in Libya. And as RT's Laura Emmett reports, the organisation may have been trying to prevent Gaddafi from burying the American buck.
According to some, it's about protecting civilians.
We must not tolerate this regime using military force against its own people.
Others say it's about oil.
The only reason they're interested with Libya is about the oil. You'd think we'd be in Iraq if the major export there was broccoli.
But some are convinced intervention in Libya is all about currency, specifically Gaddafi's plan to introduce the gold dinar, a single African currency made from gold, a true sharing of the wealth.
It's one of these things that you have to plan almost in secret, because as soon as you say you're going to change over from the dollar to something else, you're going to be targeted. They were too interested, and I think most countries in Africa were keen.
Gaddafi didn't give up. In the months leading up to the military intervention, he called on African and Muslim nations to join together to create this new currency that would rival the dollar and euro. They would sell oil and other resources around the world only for gold dinars. It's an idea that would shift the economic balance of the world. Countries' wealth would depend on how much gold they have, not how many dollars they trade. And Libya has 144 tons of gold. The UK has double that, but 10 times the population.
If Gaddafi had an intent to try to reprice his oil or whatever else the country was selling in the global markets and accept something else as a currency, or maybe launch a gold dinar currency, any move such as that would certainly not be welcomed by the power elite today who are responsible for controlling the world's central banks. So yes, that would certainly be something that would cause his immediate dismissal and the need for other reasons to be brought forth for removing him from power.
Teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through. Dying of the best I've
Today I am pleased to announce, on behalf of the American people and on behalf of President Obama, another $290 million in humanitarian assistance for those affected by the conflict, both inside Syria and the communities throughout the region where they have taken refuge. With the newest contribution that I've announced today, the United States has now committed more than $2 billion to support refugees and the nations that have opened their doors to them. The elections are non-elections. The elections are a great big zero. They're meaningless. And they're meaningless because you can't have an election where millions of your people don't even have an ability to vote, where they don't have an ability to contest the election, and they have no choice. So nothing has changed between the day before the election and the day after. Nothing.
Worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early.
A Malaysian plane was shot out or blown up in the air. And I said to myself, wow, what's going on with this Malaysian Airlines? Didn't they just lose one that was the cover story in the American news for 7 weeks in a row, and now another one blew up? So I'm telling you, that's what was my initial thought before I started hearing the spin. I don't know what happened, and no one really does. All this is, to me, as I see it, it's more of the propaganda to pit nations against nations by using an example that is a horror. But hey, how many people were killed in Pakistan last week, in Waziristan? How many people are being killed right now as we speak in Gaza? I can tell you as a fact because I have the papers in front of me. I have the Weekend Financial Times. The Gaza story is on page 4. And in a very, very obscure kind of headline. Israel flags widening of ground offensive. Oh, Jesus, almost 400 people dead over there. But they used the propaganda of an airplane blowing up. Did it happen in the air? Is this more of Malaysia Air? Who shot it down? Did it get shot down? Nobody knows. But this is the first 4 pages of the Financial Times.